Captain Lee Hyun-woo stood on the bridge of the UES Resilience, watching the stars through the massive view screen. The ship stretched out for miles in every direction around him. 50,000 people called this place home now. They had been traveling for 8 months toward New Terra, a green world that would become humanity's newest colony. The Resilience was not just a ship. It was a floating city. Gardens grew in the middle sections where families lived. Children played in parks. Built inside the hull, schools taught the next generation while their parents worked in factories that would one day build cities on New Terra. The ship carried everything needed to start a new world. Lee had commanded military vessels before, but this was different. These were not soldiers. They were farmers, teachers, doctors, and engineers. They trusted him to get them safely to their new home. The weight of that trust never left his shoulders. "Captain," called Lieutenant Commander Yoon Jae-sung from his station. "Long-range sensors are picking up something ahead." Lee walked over to the tactical display. Yoon was young but smart. He had served in special forces before joining the colony mission. His fingers moved across the control panel, bringing up the sensor data. "What do you see?" Lee asked. "Ships, sir. Lots of them. They're not human design." Yoon's voice was steady, but Lee heard the concern underneath. Chief Engineer Park So-young looked up from her console near the back of the bridge. She was brilliant with machines and had designed many of the Resilience's systems herself. "Could they be traders? Other peaceful species?" Lee studied the display. The unknown ships were arranged in a battle formation. They blocked the path to New Terra completely. "Get me Admiral Kim on the Guardian," he ordered. The view screen changed to show Admiral Kim Tae-min aboard the military escort ship that traveled with them. The Guardian was small compared to the Resilience, but it carried powerful weapons and experienced soldiers. 2 other escort ships, the Defender and the Shield, flanked them on either side. "I see them too," Kim said before Lee could speak. 47. Vessels in a defensive wall formation. They're definitely military. Dr. Choi Min-ji, the colony's chief scientist, stepped onto the bridge. She had been working in the terraforming labs when the alert came. "Are we in their territory? Maybe they just want to talk." Lee hoped she was right, but his military training told him otherwise. "All stop," he commanded. The massive ship slowly came to a halt, its engines going quiet after months of constant travel. The unknown ships moved closer. They were strange-looking, with sharp angles and dark metal hulls. Energy readings showed powerful weapons pointed at the human fleet. One ship, larger than the others, moved to the front of their formation. A new voice came through the communication system. It was deep and harsh, speaking in broken human language. "Human vessels, you are in Vorthak space. You will turn back now or be destroyed." Lee felt ice in his stomach. He had heard of the Vorthak from other colonies. They were an empire that conquered weaker species and made them slaves. Reports said they were cruel and never showed mercy. "This is Captain Lee of the UES Resilience," he replied. "We are peaceful colonists traveling to New Terra. We mean no harm to your people." "There is no peace with humans," the alien voice responded. "Your kind spreads like disease. You take worlds that do not belong to you. Turn back or die." Lee looked at his bridge crew. Park's hands were tight on her controls. Yoon was checking weapon systems. Dr. Choi looked scared but determined. These people had given up everything on Earth to build a new life. They could not just turn around and give up their dreams. "We cannot turn back," Lee said into the communicator. "New Terra is not your world. It belongs to no one. We have the right to settle there peacefully." Silence filled the bridge for long seconds. Then the alien voice returned, full of anger. "You choose death. War Master Krextal shows no mercy to those who defy the Vorthak hegemony." The communication cut off. Immediately, the alien ships began moving into attack positions. Lee turned to Admiral Kim's image on the screen. "Get the escorts between us and them. Protect the colonists." Already moving, Kim replied. The Guardian and the other two military ships raced forward, placing themselves between the Resilience and the Vorthak fleet. All civilians to emergency stations, Lee announced shipwide. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Throughout the massive colony ship, families grabbed emergency supplies and rushed to protected areas deep inside the hull. Parents held their children tight while teachers led school groups to safety. Everyone had practiced this, but no one thought it would really happen. The first attack came without warning. Strange mines appeared in space around the human fleet, creating gravity fields that pulled the ships off course. The Defender, caught in one of the gravity wells, crashed into another mine and exploded in a ball of fire. 2,000 souls, whispered Dr. Choi, watching the explosion through the view screen. The Vorthak ships opened fire with bright plasma beams. The shield took several hits and began breaking apart. Admiral Kim's Guardian fought back, its weapons striking alien hulls, but there were too many enemies. The Resilience shook as energy beams hit its outer hull. Park's fingers flew over her console. Forward shields down to 60%. Hull breaches on decks 7 and 12. We're losing. Atmosphere in Section C. More mines appeared around the colony ship. The Resilience was too big and slow to avoid them all. Gravity fields grabbed the ship and pulled it toward the Vorthak fleet. Emergency alarms rang throughout the corridors as families huddled in safe rooms, praying for salvation that would not come. They're boarding us, Yoon reported. Alien ships are docking with our lower levels. Lee's heart sank. The escort ships were gone. The Admiral's last message had been cut off when plasma fire destroyed the Guardian's bridge. Now the Resilience drifted helpless while enemy soldiers poured into its corridors. The bridge doors burst open. Tall alien creatures in dark armor stepped inside, carrying weapons that glowed with deadly energy. They looked like giant insects with 4 arms and red eyes. Their leader spoke in that harsh voice they had heard before. I am War Master Crextall. Your ship is mine. Your people are mine. They will serve the hegemony until they die. Lee stood straight, meeting the alien's gaze. The people of this ship are under my protection. I will not let you harm them, Crextall made a sound that might have been laughter. You have no choice, human. Your weapons are broken. Your escorts are destroyed. You drift in space with no power to escape. It was true. The Resilience's main engines were dead. Life support was failing in half the ship. Thousands of colonists were trapped in damaged sections. The ship that had been their hope for a new future was now their prison. Take the bridge crew to the holding areas, Crextall commanded his soldiers. Leave them alive for questioning. The rest of the humans will be sorted later. The strong ones will work in our mines. The weak ones will feed our livestock. As alien hands grabbed his arms, Lee looked at his crew one last time. Park was trying to hide data files in her console. Yoon was memorizing the positions of the alien soldiers. Dr. Choi was thinking, always thinking, even in defeat. The War Master turned to leave, confident in his victory. Your ship will drift here until your life support fails completely. A reminder to other humans of what happens when they refuse to obey the Vorthak. But as the aliens marched the bridge crew away, Lee caught Park's eye. She gave him the smallest nod. Hidden in her final commands to the ship's computer was something the aliens would never suspect. Protocol Omega was now active, buried deep in the ship's systems, where only humans would know to look for it. The Vorthak thought they had won completely. They had destroyed the escorts, captured the crew, and left the colony ship to die slowly in space. But they had made one crucial mistake. They had underestimated human determination, and they had never learned that sometimes, when you corner a peaceful people and threaten their families, they become the most dangerous enemy you could possibly face. In the depths of the damaged ship, in hidden places the aliens had not found, Loyal crew members were already beginning to work. Protocol Omega was more than just a plan. It was humanity's promise that they would never surrender, never give up, and never stop fighting for their people's freedom. The real war was just beginning. 3 days passed after the Vorthak attack. The alien warships had left the crippled Resilience floating in space like a dead whale. War Master Krextal believed the human colony ship would soon become a tomb for 50,000 people. He was wrong. Deep in the ship's lower levels, in sections the aliens had missed during their quick raid, Chief Engineer Park So-young crawled through damaged air vents. Her hands were cut from broken metal, and her uniform was torn, but her mind was sharp and focused. Behind her followed a team of 20 engineers and technicians who had avoided capture. "How much time do we have?" asked Engineer Nam Do-hyun, a young man who usually worked on the ship's water systems. Park checked her portable scanner. "Life support will fail completely in 4 days. The Vorthak damaged our main power grid, but they didn't destroy it. They wanted us to die slowly." The team reached a hidden maintenance room that the aliens had not found. Inside, Park activated an emergency terminal and began typing commands. Green text flowed across the screen as she accessed Protocol Omega, the secret plan that Captain Lee had authorized with his final bridge command. "What exactly is Protocol Omega?" asked Technician Oh Yun-seo, an older woman who had been building terraforming equipment before the attack. Park's fingers never stopped moving on the keyboard. "It's a theoretical plan we developed during the ship's construction. If the Resilience was ever crippled and couldn't reach its destination, we would convert it into something else entirely." "Convert it into what?" "A weapon." Park's voice was quiet but determined. "The same technology we plan to use for building cities on New Terra can be turned into the most powerful weapon humanity has ever created." Throughout the damaged ship, other groups of survivors were also moving in secret. Dr. Choi Min-ji had gathered 15 scientists in the abandoned hydroponics lab. They studied the terraforming equipment with new eyes, seeing not tools for creation, but instruments of destruction. "The matter converters work by breaking down molecular bonds," Dr. Choi explained to her team. "We designed them to turn raw rock and metal into building materials for colonies, but molecular destabilization can work both ways." Her assistant, researcher Kim Hyejin, looked worried. "Are you saying we can use our equipment to destroy things at the molecular level?" "Not just things," Dr. Choi replied. "Ships, space stations, even planets, if we had enough power." The problem was power. The ship's main reactor had been damaged in the attack. Without it, they could not run the massive terraforming systems. But Park had a solution growing in her mind as she worked through the night in the maintenance tunnels. In another part of the ship, Lieutenant Commander Yoon Jae-sung was leading a different kind of operation. He had found 12 security officers and 38 civilians who wanted to fight. They moved quietly through the corridors, avoiding the areas where Vorthak soldiers still patrolled. The aliens left guard posts at the main docking bays and the bridge, Yoon whispered to his team as they crouched in a damaged cargo hold. "But they don't understand our ship's layout. There are hundreds of passages they don't know about." Former police officer Lee Sang-min nodded. "What's the plan?" "First, we gather weapons from the destroyed escort ships. The Guardian's wreckage is still connected to our hull. If we can reach it, we can salvage plasma rifles and body armor." Teacher Bae Min-young raised her hand. She had volunteered to fight even though she had never held a weapon before. "What about the people in the prisoner areas? My students are in there." "We get them out," Yoon promised. "All of them. But we need to be smart about it. The Vorthak think we're broken and helpless. We use that against them." While the resistance groups worked in secret, Admiral Kim Tae-min floated in space inside a damaged escape pod from the Guardian. His left arm was broken and blood covered his face, but he was alive. The pod's emergency beacon was too weak for long-range communication, but it was strong enough to reach the Resilience. Park found the signal on the 4th day. She and her team had been working non-stop to restore basic power to critical systems. When she heard Kim's voice through the static, she nearly cried with relief. "This is Admiral Kim to any surviving crew. I'm in Escape Pod 7, approximately 2 kilometers off your starboard side. My ship is gone, but I have tactical data on the Vorthak fleet." Park quickly organized a rescue mission. Using the ship's remaining short-range shuttles, they brought the Admiral aboard through a service bay the aliens had not discovered. Kim was badly hurt, but his mind was clear and angry. "They have 44 ships left in their main battle group," Kim told the gathered leaders in their secret meeting room. "But they're overconfident. Krextal thinks we're already dead. His fleet moved on to attack other human colonies." Dr. Choi looked up from the terraforming data she was studying. "How long before they come back to check on us?" 2 weeks, maybe 3. They expect to find floating corpses when they return. "They're going to find something very different," Park said. She activated a wall display that showed her engineering plans. "Look at this." The screen showed a redesigned version of the Resilience. Instead of a colony ship, it looked like a massive weapon with the terraforming equipment at its center. Power conduits ran throughout the hull, connecting every system to a central core. "The quantum reactor wasn't destroyed," Park explained. "It was just knocked offline. I can bring it back, but not in its original configuration. We'll have to rebuild it as part of the terraforming matrix." Admiral Kim studied the plans. "This looks like it could work, but we'd need every person on the ship working together. Military, civilians, even children." "We're not military and civilians anymore," Yoon said firmly. "We're all crew now. Everyone fights, everyone builds, everyone survives together or not at all." Dr. Choi pointed to another part of the display. "The matter converters can be linked together into what I'm calling the Genesis cannon. It won't just destroy targets, it will break them down and use their matter to repair and improve our ship." The room was quiet for a moment, as everyone understood what she meant. They were not just planning to fight back. They were planning to become something that had never existed before. A ship that grew stronger by consuming its enemies. Over the following days, the secret became an open mission. Captain Lee and the other captured officers were still prisoners, but messages passed through hidden communication networks reached every person on the ship. The plan spread like fire through dry grass. In the engineering sections, teams worked to reroute power systems. In the science labs, researchers redesigned peaceful equipment into weapons of incredible power. In the civilian areas, families learned to build ammunition and repair equipment. The children were not left out. Teenage student Ko Yun Seo led a group that crawled through air vents too small for adults, carrying messages and small components. Between work teams, they became the ship's invisible communication network. Elder Park Jin-ho, who was 73 years old, organized the retired people into a manufacturing force. "We came here to build a new world," he told his team. "Now we build a new kind of ship instead." The transformation was not just mechanical. The people themselves were changing. Families who had never imagined violence now worked together to create weapons. Teachers became tactical planners, engineers became soldiers. Everyone found strength they did not know they had. Yoon's combat teams had grown to over 300 volunteers. They practiced fighting in the ship's corridors and learned to use salvaged alien weapons. More importantly, they rescued captured crew members in small groups, freeing people from alien guard posts without triggering major alarms. By the end of 2 weeks, Park's engineering miracle was nearly complete. The quantum reactor hummed with new power, feeding energy into systems that had never been designed to work together. The Genesis cannon was taking shape at the heart of the ship, a weapon that could reshape matter itself. Dr. Choi ran the final tests on her molecular destabilization matrix. "It works," she announced to the assembled leaders. "We can break apart anything made of normal matter and rebuild it however we want." Admiral Kim looked at the tactical displays showing their progress. "The Vorthak will return soon. Are we ready?" Captain Lee's voice came through the communications system. The prison guards had finally been overcome, and the senior officers were free. "This is Captain Lee to all hands. I've seen what you've built. I've seen what we've become. The Vorthak wanted to destroy us, but they've created something they can't possibly understand." Park smiled as she looked around at the faces of her fellow survivors. They were no longer the same people who had left Earth hoping for peaceful lives on a distant world. They had become something harder, smarter, and infinitely more dangerous. "When the aliens return," Park said quietly, "they're going to learn something about humans that they should have known from the beginning." "What's that?" asked Yoon. "We never give up. And when you hurt our families, we don't just fight back. We make sure you never hurt anyone else again." In the distance, sensors began to detect approaching ships. The Vorthak were coming back to admire their handiwork. Instead, they would face humanity's newest and most terrifying creation, a weapon born from desperation and built with love for those who had been threatened. The real test was about to begin. The transformation was complete, but the ship no longer looked like anything the galaxy had ever seen. The UES Resilience had become something between a weapon, a factory, and a living creature. Its hull had been reshaped into flowing curves that channeled energy toward the massive Genesis cannon at its center. What had once been gardens and homes were now the chambers of the most powerful weapon humanity had ever built. Chief Engineer Park So-young stood in the new command center, watching displays that showed power flowing through systems she had designed. In just 3 weeks. Around her, crew members who had been teachers and farmers now operated weapons that could remake matter itself. The change in the people was as dramatic as the change in their ship. "Power levels are holding steady," reported former hydroponics supervisor Lim Ji-woo. She had learned to manage the quantum reactor that now fed the Genesis cannon. "We can maintain full charge for 6 hours of continuous firing." Dr. Choi Min-ji looked up from her molecular analysis station. "The targeting system is ready. We can hit anything from a single ship to an entire planet. The matter conversion process will break down the target and use its atoms to repair and improve our own systems." Captain Lee Hyun-woo walked through the command center, watching his transformed crew work with deadly efficiency. These were the same people who had sung lullabies to their children just a month ago. Now, they prepared to face an alien fleet, with weapons that could destroy solar systems. "Are we still human?" asked Dr. Choi quietly, as the captain approached her station. Lee considered the question seriously. "We're what humans become when someone threatens our families. The Vorthak wanted to make us slaves. Instead, they made us into something they can't control or understand." Lieutenant Commander Yoon Jae-sung entered the command center wearing armor that had been built from salvaged alien materials. His security teams now numbered over 800 people, all trained in combat techniques adapted for fighting in space. Behind him came Admiral Kim Taemin, his broken arm now healed, and his uniform bearing new insignia. "Long-range sensors show the Vorthak fleet returning," Kim reported. 42 ships led by War Master Krextal's flagship. They're moving slowly, probably expecting to find dead bodies floating in space. "How long until they reach us?" Lee asked. 6 hours. The captain activated the ship-wide communication system. His voice reached every person aboard the transformed vessel. Children in the protected core sections, elderly people operating manufacturing systems, and combat teams preparing for boarding actions. "This is Captain Lee. In 6 hours, the aliens who attacked our families will return. They expect to find us dead. Instead, they will face something the galaxy has never seen before. We are no longer a colony ship. We are no longer defenseless. We have become humanity's answer to those who would enslave us." Throughout the ship, people stopped their work to listen. Families gathered in groups, holding each other close while preparing for battle. There was fear, but there was also something stronger, a fierce determination that had grown from weeks of desperate work and shared danger. "Every person on this ship has a job to do," Lee continued. Our engineers will keep our new systems running. Our scientists will guide our weapons. Our security teams will fight any aliens who board us. Our families will stay safe in the protected areas and trust the rest of us to defend them. In the lower sections of the ship, teenager Ko Yunseo and her team of young messengers made final preparations. They had become experts at moving through the ship's hidden passages, carrying information and supplies between work areas. Now they would serve as the communication network during battle. "Are you scared?" asked her friend Shin Yuri, who was only 15 but had learned to repair weapon systems. "Yes," Yunseo admitted, "but I'm more angry than scared. They hurt our families. They thought we would just give up and die." Elder Park Jin-ho gathered his team of senior citizens in the manufacturing center. At 73, he was too old for combat, but his hands were steady and his mind was sharp. "We will keep making ammunition and repair parts during the battle," he told them. "The young people will do the fighting, but they need us to keep their weapons working." The hours passed quickly. Throughout the ship, final preparations were completed. The Genesis cannon charged to full power, drawing energy from the quantum reactor and the ship's life support systems. Crew members took their positions at stations that hadn't existed a month ago. Park monitored the ship's new configuration from her engineering station. The vessel had grown during its transformation, using matter from the destroyed escort ships to add new sections and capabilities. It was now 3 times larger than the original colony ship and infinitely more dangerous. "The Vorthak are entering weapons range," reported sensor operator Han-Min Seok, a former geology teacher who had learned to track hostile ships. On the main view screen, the alien fleet appeared as bright dots against the stars. They moved in the same arrogant formation they had used during their first attack, confident that they faced no resistance. The lead ship opened a communication channel. War Master Krextal's harsh voice filled the command center. "Human vessel, prepare to be boarded. We will collect the bodies of your dead and salvage anything useful from your wreckage." Captain Lee stepped forward, his face calm and determined. "War Master Krextal, this is Captain Lee of the UES Resilience. We have a message for you." There was silence from the alien fleet, probably confusion that any humans were still alive. Then Krextal's voice returned, filled with anger. "Impossible! Your ship was crippled. Your life support should have failed days ago." "You're right," Lee replied. "The ship you attacked is dead. What you face now is something new, something you created by threatening our families and trying to make us slaves." Dr. Choi looked at her targeting displays. The Genesis cannon was locked onto the alien flagship, ready to demonstrate humanity's new capabilities. "All systems ready, Captain." Lee took a deep breath. A month ago, he had been a peaceful colony commander, hoping to build farms and schools on a distant world. Now he was about to unleash a weapon that could destroy planets. The change should have horrified him, but instead he felt only cold. "Determination! Fire!" he commanded. The Genesis cannon discharged with a sound like reality tearing apart. A beam of pure energy reached across space, striking Krextal's flagship at the speed of light. But this was not an ordinary weapon. Instead of simply destroying the target, the beam began breaking down the ship's molecular structure, separating atoms and reorganizing them. The Vorthak flagship didn't explode. It dissolved, its matter being converted into energy and raw materials that flowed back through the Genesis beam to the Resilience. The alien crew had just enough time to scream before their bodies were unmade at the molecular level. "Target destroyed," reported Dr. Choi. "Matter conversion complete. We've gained approximately 2,000 tons of refined metals and ceramics." The alien fleet reacted with panic and rage. Ships scattered in all directions while others charged forward, firing every weapon they had. Plasma beams and missile barrages struck the Resilience's hull, but the transformed ship was no longer fragile. Its new armor repaired itself using the matter absorbed from the destroyed flagship. "Return fire," Admiral Kim ordered. "All weapons, all targets." The Resilience had become more than just a single large weapon. Smaller Genesis projectors opened fire from points all along its hull. Each beam struck a different Vorthak ship, and each ship dissolved into its component atoms. The matter flowed back to the human vessel, making it larger and stronger with every kill. In the Combat Information Center, Lieutenant Commander Yoon coordinated the battle with deadly precision. 5 ships destroyed, 7 damaged. No significant damage to our systems. But the Vorthak were not helpless. Their remaining ships had formed a battle line and were concentrating their fire on specific sections of the human vessel. Warning alarms rang throughout the Resilience as hull breaches appeared in the outer sections. "They're trying to board us again," reported Security Chief Nam Do-hyun. 6 assault shuttles launched from their cruiser. "Let them come," Yoon replied. His security teams were ready, armed with weapons built from salvaged alien technology and powered by the ship's massive reactor. When the Vorthak soldiers cut through the hull, they found not helpless colonists, but experienced fighters who had learned to use molecular disruptors as personal weapons. The boarding battle was brief and vicious. Alien soldiers who had expected easy victory instead faced humans who fought with the desperation of parents defending their children. The molecular disruptors dissolved Vorthak armor and weapons, leaving the aliens helpless against people they had planned to enslave. In the main battle, the Genesis cannon continued its terrible work. Ship after ship dissolved into component atoms that made the Resilience grow stronger. The weapon that had been designed to transform dead worlds into gardens of life now consumed an entire alien fleet. 16 ships destroyed, Dr. Choi reported. The remaining vessels are trying to escape. Captain Lee watched the tactical display as the surviving Vorthak ships fled toward the edge of the system. They had learned something about humanity that would terrify them for the rest of their lives. The transformed Resilience moved through space like a predator hunting prey. 6 months had passed since the first battle with the Vorthak, and the ship had grown beyond recognition. What started as a single colony vessel was now a floating city of war, stretched across miles of space and powered by technology that mixed human engineering with absorbed alien science. Captain Lee Hyun-woo stood in the expanded command center, watching tactical displays that showed Vorthak military positions throughout the sector. His crew had become experts at finding and destroying alien supply bases, rescue missions for human colonies, and battles that left enemy fleets as raw material for their ever-growing ship. "Intelligence reports confirm our target," said Admiral Kim Tae-min, pointing to a star system on the main display. "The Nexus system contains the largest Vorthak supply depot in this region. Over 60 military ships use it as a refueling station." Dr. Choi Min-ji looked up from her analysis console. "The depot is built on 3 large asteroids connected by space stations. Destroying it would cripple their military operations for months." Chief Engineer Park So-young studied the tactical data with the eye of someone who had learned to see everything as potential building material. "Those asteroids contain rare metals we need for expanding our manufacturing capabilities. If we convert the depot instead of just destroying it, we could build 3 more Genesis-class weapons." The ship now carried over 200,000 people. The original 50,000 colonists plus survivors rescued from 17 different human settlements that the Vorthak had attacked. Each rescue operation had made the ship larger and more powerful as they absorbed the matter from destroyed alien vessels. Lieutenant Commander Yoon Jae-sung entered the command center, his uniform now bearing the insignia of someone who commanded an army rather than a simple security team. Behind him walked Colonel Bak Soo-jin, a former military officer they had rescued from the Kepler mining colony. "Boarding teams are ready," Yoon reported. "We have 1,500 combat troops trained in zero-gravity warfare, plus support teams, with molecular disruptors and portable Genesis projectors." Colonel Bayek added her own report. "The rescued civilians from New Osaka have finished their basic training. Another 300 people ready for combat operations if needed." Lee nodded. Every person rescued from Vorthak attacks had joined their mission willingly. They had seen their homes destroyed and their families threatened. Like the original colonists, they had been transformed by anger and determination into something harder and more dangerous than they had ever imagined they could become. "What about our new capability?" Lee asked Dr. Choi. She smiled with the satisfaction of a scientist whose theories had become reality. "The Genesis cannon can now manipulate gravitational fields as well as molecular structures. We don't just dissolve targets. We can create gravity wells, open temporary wormholes, and even destabilize the fabric of space-time itself." The Resilience approached the Nexus system carefully, using stealth technology copied from destroyed Vorthak ships. Long-range sensors showed the supply depot exactly as intelligence had described. 3 massive asteroids connected by space stations, surrounded by dozens of military vessels. "They have no idea we're here," reported sensor specialist Han Min-seok. "Their patrols are following standard patterns. They think they're safe in their own territory." Captain Lee studied the enemy positions. The Vorthak had learned to fear the human ship, but they still didn't understand what they were really facing. They thought in terms of traditional warfare, fleets of ships fighting other fleets. They couldn't comprehend a single vessel that grew stronger by consuming its enemies. "Begin the approach," he ordered. "All stealth systems active." The Resilience moved toward the depot like a ghost ship, its hull absorbing sensor beams and hiding its massive size behind energy fields that bent light around its structure. The Vorthak patrol ships continued their boring circuits, unaware that death was approaching. In the ship's lower sections, families gathered in the protected core areas just as they had during that first battle 6 months ago. But these were no longer frightened refugees. Children played war games using toy versions of Genesis projectors. Parents who had once been teachers and farmers now worked as ammunition loaders and damage control specialists. Teenager Ko Yoon-seo, now 17, and a veteran of dozens of battles, led her messenger teams through the ship's communication tunnels. "Remember," she told her team, "during combat operations, we are the nervous system of this ship. Every message has to be delivered quickly and accurately." Her friend, Shin Yuri, who had become an expert at repairing weapon systems during battle, nodded. "The combat veterans from New Osaka are still learning our procedures. Make sure they understand the emergency signals." In the manufacturing sections, Elder Park Jin-ho supervised teams that worked around the clock to produce ammunition and replacement parts. At 74, he had become one of the ship's most valuable resources, his steady hands and sharp mind, keeping the weapons system supplied even during the heaviest fighting. "The young ones do the fighting," he told his team of senior citizens, "but we make sure they never run out of tools for the job." The Resilience reached attack range of the supply depot without being detected. Captain Lee looked around his command center at the people who had once been peaceful colonists. They were something different now, a family forged by shared danger and united by the need to protect each other. "All stations report ready," Admiral Kim announced. "Genesis cannon charged to full power," Dr. Choi added. "Boarding teams standing by," reported Colonel Baek. Lee took a breath. 6 months ago, giving the order to fire had been the hardest thing he had ever done. Now it felt as natural as breathing. "Target the central asteroid. Fire." The Genesis cannon discharged, but this time the beam did something new. Instead of simply dissolving the target, it created a gravitational anomaly that pulled the asteroid apart from the inside. The massive rock cracked and split, its pieces spreading out in a perfect sphere around the weapon emplacement. The Vorthak ships reacted with panic and confusion. Some tried to flee, others moved to attack, but none of them understood what they were really facing. The Resilience was no longer just a single large weapon. It was a system of interconnected Genesis projectors that could manipulate matter and energy on a scale that seemed like magic to anyone who didn't understand the science. Behind it, secondary targets locked, Dr. Choi reported with calm professionalism. "Initiating cascade dissolution." Smaller Genesis beams reached out to touch each Vorthak ship in turn. But instead of dissolving them immediately, the beams created a network of energy connections between all the targets. When Dr. Choi activated the Cascade Protocol, every enemy vessel began breaking down simultaneously, their matter flowing through the energy network toward the Resilience. In less than 10 minutes, 63 Vorthak ships and 3 asteroid bases had been converted into raw materials that made the human vessel even larger and more powerful. The supply depot that had taken years to build was gone, replaced by an expanded section of the Resilience that contained new manufacturing facilities and weapon emplacements. "Incredible," whispered Colonel Bayek, watching the tactical display. "We just consumed an entire fleet and turned it into part of our ship." But the battle was not over. Warning alarms rang throughout the command center as new contacts appeared on the long-range sensors. A massive Vorthak fleet was approaching. Over 200 ships, led by a vessel that was larger than anything they had seen before. "That's War Master Krextall," Admiral Kim said grimly. "He survived our first battle and has been hunting us ever since. It looks like he brought everything he could find." The approaching fleet was arranged in a formation designed specifically to counter the Resilience's capabilities. The ships stayed far apart to prevent Cascade dissolution, and their weapons were focused on creating interference patterns that would disrupt Genesis beam targeting. "He's learned," Captain Lee admitted. "This won't be as easy as our previous battles." Lieutenant Commander Yoon studied the enemy formation. "They're trying to surround us and attack from multiple directions simultaneously. Standard tactics won't work against that many ships." Dr. Choi looked at her control systems with the expression of someone solving a complex puzzle. "Maybe we don't fight them ship to ship. What if we change the rules of the battle entirely?" "What do you mean?" She pointed to her gravitational manipulation controls. "The Genesis cannon can now create stable wormholes. What if we don't just fight them here? What if we take the battle to them?" Captain Lee understood immediately. "You want to open wormholes inside their formation?" "Better than that. I want to open wormholes that lead to the heart of a nearby star. Let them try to fight solar plasma at several million degrees." The idea was insane, dangerous, and completely beyond anything that had ever been attempted in space warfare. It was also exactly the kind of impossible solution that had made humanity the most feared species in the galaxy. "Do it," Lee ordered. The Genesis cannon charged with more power than it had ever held before, drawing energy from the ship's life support systems and even the lighting in non-critical sections. Throughout the Resilience, people held their breath as reality itself prepared to bend to human will. 2 years had passed since the Resilience first fired its Genesis cannon in anger. The ship was no longer recognizable as anything that had ever existed before. Stretching across 30 miles of space, it looked like a mechanical flower made of metal and energy, with the massive Genesis cannon at its center and defensive arrays spreading like petals around its hull. Fleet Admiral Lee Hyun-woo, his rank had changed as his responsibilities grew, stood in the command center of what was now called the flagship of humanity's Resilience Fleet. Around him, 50 other Genesis-class vessels moved in formation, each one built from the remains of conquered enemy fleets and crewed by humans rescued from across the galaxy. The fleet carried over 3 million people now. Not all of them were from Earth's colonies. Some were aliens who had joined humanity's cause after seeing what the Vorthak and other predator species had done to peaceful worlds. They had learned that humans protected anyone who stood with them. Regardless of what planet they had been born on, long-range sensors confirm our target, reported Admiral Kim Tae-min from his position at the tactical station. His hair had gone gray during the 2 years of constant warfare, but his eyes were as sharp as ever. Kethmore Prime, capital world of the Vorthak hegemony. 12 billion inhabitants. Dr. Choi Min-ji looked up from her science station where she now commanded a team of hundreds of researchers from dozens of species. The planetary shields are impressive, but they're designed to stop conventional weapons. They won't even slow down a Genesis beam. Chief Engineer Park So-young monitored the massive power systems that fed the fleet's weapons. She had become the architect of humanity's new way of war, designing ships that could reshape reality itself. All vessels report ready for planetary conversion operations. The words should have horrified any normal person, but the crew of the Resilience had stopped being normal people long ago. They were the children and grandchildren of those who had been attacked by the Vorthak, threatened with slavery, and forced to watch their families suffer. They had become something harder and more determined than their species had ever been before. Lieutenant Colonel Ko Yun-seo, the teenager who had once carried messages through air vents, was now 20 and commanded her own assault battalion, entered the command center with her latest intelligence report. Ground reconnaissance confirms that the Vorthak are holding human prisoners in work camps across the planet's southern continent, approximately 2 million people. How long to evacuate them? Lee asked. Boarding operations could rescue all human prisoners within 6 hours, reported General Yoon Jae-sung, who now commanded the fleet's ground forces. But we'll need to neutralize the planetary defense system first. Admiral Lee studied the tactical display showing Kethmore Prime. It was a beautiful world. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds, and a peaceful sky. In a few hours it would be gone, transformed into something completely different. The 12 billion Vorthak who lived there had chosen this fate when they decided to make slaves of other species. Open a channel to the planet, he ordered. The view screen shifted to show the interior of the Vorthak Planetary Command Center. The alien leaders looked like giant insects, wearing elaborate robes and jewelry made from the bones of conquered species. At their center stood Supreme War Master Vexkoth, the creature who had ordered the enslavement of humanity's colonies. Human. Vessel. Vexkoth spoke in the harsh Vorthak language, which the ship's computers automatically translated. You dare approach the sacred homeworld of the hegemony. We will destroy you and feed your bodies to our livestock. Lee stepped forward, his uniform bearing the insignia of someone who commanded the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Supreme War Master Vexkoth, this is Fleet Admiral Lee of the Human Resilience Fleet. You have exactly 1 hour to release all human prisoners on your planet and surrender your military forces unconditionally. The alien leader made a sound that might have been laughter. Surrender? To humans? You are insects compared to the might of the Vorthak. We have ruled this galaxy for 1,000 years. Your rule ends today, Lee replied calmly. You attacked our families. You tried to make us slaves. You chose to be our enemy when we offered you peace. Now you face the consequences of that choice. What consequences? Vexkoth demanded. You are one small fleet against the defenses of our entire civilization. Lee smiled with no warmth at all. We are humanity's promise that no one will ever again make slaves of our people. In 1 hour, your planet will be gone. The matter that forms your world will be reorganized into a new planet suitable for human habitation. Your civilization will become the foundation of our new colony. The communication channel closed. Throughout the Resilience Fleet, 3 million humans and their alien allies prepared for the largest Genesis conversion operation ever attempted. They were about to erase a planet from existence and rebuild it as humanity's new forward base. In the protected family areas of the flagship, children who had never known peace played games while their parents prepared for battle. These kids had been born aboard the warships, raised in a mobile civilization that traveled between stars bringing justice to those who preyed on the weak. 8-year-old Lee Min-ho, son of 2 rescued colonists, looked out a viewport at the blue planet below. Are the people down there bad? He asked his mother. Former teacher Bae Min-young, who now worked as a tactical analyst, knelt beside her son. They chose to hurt other families like ours. When someone hurts innocent people, sometimes the only way to stop them is to make sure they can never hurt anyone again. Throughout the fleet, similar conversations took place. Parents who had been forced to become soldiers explained to their children why sometimes peaceful people had to do terrible things. The lessons were hard, but they were necessary for a species that had learned the galaxy was full of predators. "Planetary bombardment in 30 minutes, announced Dr. Choi. "All Genesis weapons charged and ready." The hour passed with agonizing slowness. On the planet below, Vorthak military forces scrambled to prepare defenses that were utterly inadequate for what they faced. Their weapons had been designed to fight other aliens who used conventional technology. Nothing in their experience had prepared them for enemies who could remake matter itself. At exactly 1 hour after the ultimatum, Fleet Admiral Lee gave the order that would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. All ships commence. Planetary conversion. Target, complete molecular restructure. New configuration, Class M human habitable world. 50 Genesis cannons fired simultaneously, their beams converging on Kethmor Prime from different angles. But this was not an attack. It was the largest engineering project in galactic history. The beams began dissolving the planet's surface, breaking down its matter into component atoms, and immediately rebuilding it in a new configuration. The blue oceans became deeper and cleaner. The green continents shifted and flowed into more pleasing shapes. The atmosphere was filtered and purified, its composition adjusted to perfectly match human requirements. Cities designed for insect-like Vorthak were dissolved and replaced with structures suitable for human families. Conversion progress at 40%, Dr. Choi reported. No resistance from planetary defenses. The process is proceeding exactly according to plan. The transformation took 18 hours. When it was complete, the world that had once been Kethmor Prime was gone. In its place hung a planet that had never existed before, a world built from the atoms of another world, designed specifically for human habitation and named New Resilience. The 2 million human prisoners had been rescued during the first hour of the operation, brought aboard the fleet ships before the conversion began. They had watched in amazement as their former prison world was completely remade into humanity's newest colony. Supreme War Master Vexkoth and his government had been captured alive, preserved in stasis chambers so they could witness what had become of their civilization. When Lee visited the detention area to speak with the defeated alien leader, he found a creature broken by despair and terror. "What have you done?" Vexkoth whispered. "That world was the heart of our empire. Billions of our people lived there." "They became part of something better," Lee replied without emotion. "Their matter now forms a world where human families will live in peace, where children can play without fear of being enslaved, where teachers can teach and farmers can grow food without worrying about raiders from space." "You are monsters," the alien leader accused. "You have destroyed an entire civilization." Lee considered this. "We are what your civilization created when it decided to attack our families. We offered you peace, and you chose war. We offered you coexistence, and you chose slavery. Every human who died because of your choices made us a little bit harder, a little bit more determined, a little bit more dangerous." He turned to leave, then paused. "Your empire attacked us because you thought we were weak. You learned too late that humans are only weak when we choose to be. When you threaten our children, we become the most dangerous force in the universe." News of Kethmor Prime's conversion spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed communication. Other alien empires that had been planning attacks on human colonies suddenly reconsidered their plans.